Welcome to Now and Forever, a series of 10-minute reflections on good news spirituality. Hi, I'm Father Vincent Free, a missionary of the Sacred Heart. I'm stationed in Watertown, New York, and working in the field of family evangelization. These reflections are sponsored by the Charles and Catherine Free Family Foundation with headquarters in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And what we're doing here is reflecting on this good news spirituality to see how it might apply to spirituality today. Here with me is Vicki Phillips. She's a choir member and parishioner at Our Lady of the Sacred Heart Parish here in Watertown. Hi, Vicki.
Hi, Father.
So we're on to this is a good subject today, and it starts with a mutual friend of mine that I think you know him.
Yes, I do.
So, okay. So the title is A Spirituality for Today, and this is session number 11. After 84 years, 16 children, over 40 patents, I like this, and a very successful business career, a friend of ours said among other things, he's learned the one most generally true. People tend to do what they want to do. That's his statement. People tend to do what they want to do. This general principle is so simple and obvious that we're not ready to give it much thought. Yet when it comes to getting serious about our spiritual life, this very same rule comes right to the point. We have to want to. Getting up in the morning with a sense of purpose, taking time for prayer and reflection, and going to bed with heartfelt gratitude for what God has accomplished through us during the day is a formula that all adds up to a truly spiritual way of life. We won't arrive at that happy state unless and until it becomes our deepest desire.
Father, could you give me ways of how I or anyone could deepen that desire?
Okay, that's a good question. Here's the thing is that you have to see something that is essential to you, that you need. If you don't see it, then what happens is that you're going to be distracted by other things. So it's like, well, I guess the best example is this idea of water in the desert. Here, I'll go ahead a little bit and see what he says here. And it may apply. How can a longing for spirituality take possession of our souls? It's like water in a desert. In an arid land, because the rate of dehydration is higher, the need for water becomes more urgent. Due to its scarcity, water takes on an even greater value. We can't look at spirituality, though it's one option among many. It is no less essential to our spiritual nature than water is to the body. Well, that didn't quite answer your question. Tell you what, here, let me try it again this way. See, the water is a need, but you can't spirituality is not about a need so much as it's about a desire, a longing. Mm-hmm. And this idea of a longing is something that you only cultivate by positive values. In other words, if you look at the Beatitudes and you think they're a pipe dream, well, they're not. And you're a long way from wanting to grow as a spiritual person. But when you look at the Beatitudes and reflect on them, you say, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Do I want the kingdom of heaven? Well, I guess I do, yeah. But how can I? Well, I have to have poor in spirit. Well, blessed are those who mourn. You look at that and you say, oh, why I didn't mourn? That doesn't sound like a good idea. Well, you're not just mourning to mourn. You're mourning because of the sins of humanity and your own imperfections, your own sins. And this sort of gets you to say, well, look, I got to do something about this. And then you go on and you see the rest of them. Blessed are those who are pure of heart. They shall see God. What does that mean? That you really have your mind and heart focused on the Lord. And now, by cultivating those spiritual, what's in the Beatitudes, you can deepen this desire to grow spiritually. For a time I gave talks to young men that were drug addicts. And they had an option, either go to jail or go to this treatment center. And I used to go talk to them. And what I did talk to them about was the Beatitudes. Because they were out of touch with reality. And the Beatitudes really put you in touch with reality. So that's now when you're in touch with reality, that's the best way to acquire a deeper desire for spirituality. Because then you're not kidding yourself. And several years after I had given those talks, I went to this place where I talked, and they had developed they'd grown And there was one of the kids there that had been on at my talks, was now on the staff. So I introduced him to some people that were coming along. This was a open house day. And I asked him, do you remember what I talked about? He said right away, the Beatitudes. He knew. And I think now he quite, it wasn't just the need, it was his desire for really getting in touch with reality and finding meaning and fulfillment in his life. Okay, so now he goes on. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay. Merely telling ourselves that spirituality is extremely important won't get us very far. Just as St. Benedict and St. Francis saw the need for certain values and virtues in their times, so we have to see what needs humanity faces today. So now he's taking a different tack here. We haven't talked about this, because our spirituality, to have meaning for us, can't just be all about us. You know, it has to be, how do we do something of moment that the Lord wants done? And he's going to get this, I'm sure, when you talk about vocation. But here he's already moving in that direction. Now, he says, this is not to say that we are to disregard our personal needs. Our personal needs are what, when we meet them, then we will be equipped to actually share our values with others. And here this comes to, remember some time ago we were talking about words, and if everybody had different meanings that you couldn't really communicate, and this is an example of this. We really, now maybe we can't really dialogue with others if they don't understand what we're talking about. But we have to know what our words mean ourselves. And here's one that this idea of a value and need. The way people look at values today is anything I want, that's a value. That's not a value. It's a want. And a need is like that water. Water is a real need. And to be loved is a real need. These are certain things that really are needs, and those you have to face. But now, that even when you fulfill those needs, then he goes on to say this, not to disregard your own personal needs, but it means that we'll arrive at a better diagnosis of our own condition and a better prognosis on what we are to do, both in our own lives and for others, when looking at the common human condition of which we are a part. Whoa! George Weigel, in his big biography on John Paul II, he really explains how this is, what he just said here is true. Because we're all more into, what they call, we're into abstractions. And we're into a lot of, what do you call, skepticism. And well, because you can't really trust a lot of people. So we are influenced or affected by the cultural conditions in which we live. And so when we try to figure out what kind of spirituality we need and what kind of help the world needs, may be pretty much on the same page. So here he goes like this. He says, in short, take a look at the current counterfeit values of power, pleasure, possessions, and prestige, as embodied in violence, avarice, egoism, materialism, indifference, abortion, pornography, broken homes, and many other social ills. Once these evils begin to weigh heavily on our hearts, we're on our way to cultivating a spirituality for today. Now, I think this is one thing we have to point out. You can see this, that when you look at social ills like indifference, abortion, pornography, and so forth, they are really, we know that this is going on because we see the violence, the avarice, the egoism, the materialism, and the indifference. So, and how do we inspire that? It goes to the broken homes, because that's where all the social ills are exacerbated in that broken home.
Father, we might find spirituality at a time when we need it, but what happens when that time passes?
Well, see, that's where you have to be drawn. It's not just the need. The need is an aspect that you have to fulfill, but really, you can't get to be a spiritual person without being totally spiritual, without being drawn. If you want to be just part-time spiritual, forget it. It doesn't work that way. You've got to fully and wholly commit yourself to living a spiritual life. And that's what this whole course on God's love is talking about. That we have to, like Father Chevalier said, allow ourselves to be touched by God's love, be transformed, and then we can find meaning and fulfillment in life. Thanks very much for listening. Hope to see you soon. Take care and God bless.